So you've heard of FreeNAS, which eventually turned into TrueNAS. And of course, what is TrueNAS? Well, it's basically a data platform where you can set up your own storage system at home or at work or whatever environment you want to use. And you can either use your own hardware and install TrueNAS on top of it, or you can buy their dedicated hardware, and either it has it pre-installed or you install the stuff yourself. And one of the things at the moment that's come up in more recent times is, what is the difference between the core software and the scale software? Right, so the difference between the two really is the core software system is still built on FreeBSD, right? And the scale system is built on Linux. To be precise, it actually uses Debian instead of using BSD. Now, of course, there's pros and cons for each system, and one of the biggest immediate differences between the two systems is very much the support when it comes to stuff like Docker. So, of course, Linux supports Docker or Kubernetes, and BSD doesn't, and BSD, of course, uses jails instead. But what I'm going to show you today is how to get a quick virtual environment of TrueNAS up and running. You can, of course, set this up as a virtual environment like we're going to do today, and it won't have necessarily the benefits of the full-blown environment on hardware, but it will give you a good idea of some of the things that can and can't be done. Okay, so what I'm going to do is the following: is spin up a virtual machine. Right. And we're going to just get the access. So I downloaded the TrueNAS scale, just the latest edition. And here we're just going to say it's a Debian system. Right. We'll give this thing a good amount of memory. Give it a good amount of core CPUs. And what I'm going to do here is the root drive, or the main OS that we're going to install it on, will be 100 gigs. And I'm just going to tick this box here that says customize configuration before install. And of course, this is TrueNAS. I'm going to click finish. Okay, so I'm going to leave it as BIOS and everything. But what I'm doing here is the following. For this to work, to demonstrate what I want to do for you, it needs more than one drive. So if you were to install it on your own, let's say you've got a little mini PC around, well, if you just install it on the mini PC, it's not going to offer you all the features, so you would need then at least an external drive to be plugged into it, USB drive or whatever, or an additional internal drive. So here, for example, we have the main virtual disk, and now we're going to add another disk. So I'm going to add here a second storage disk here as well. So we're going to go, of course, to all storage, which we're already on here, of course. I'm going to make this one at 200 gigs. Okay, I'm going to connect it the same. I'm also going to use virtual ISO disk device, and I'm going to finish that. And now we're going to go back to begin installation, and we're going to start the install. And firstly, we're going to just go through the steps: install, upgrade. I'm going to say 1, and now it's going to ask us which drives are we going to use for this for now. So for now, I'm just going to select VDA, the first drive. We'll think of it as the root drive. Say okay, yes, we wanted to proceed. Administrative user, we're going to give it a password. Okay, we're going to let it create a swap partition. And what it's going to do now, okay, so in this case we're not going to have EFI, we're going to just enable legacy BIOS, because in this case I haven't enabled EFI for the virtual machine. And now, of course, it's going to extract everything and install it, and then we will access it from the browser. I'll just let it run these steps. Okay, it tells us it's been succeeded, so let's reboot. And of course, in a production environment, you should be making sure that your FreeNAS server is using a reserved IP, so that the IP address doesn't change all the time. Of course, you could either put in a DHCP reservation or just give it a static IP, however you choose to do that. In this case, though, right, this is the screen we get to now, the console setup. So essentially what we're going to do now is we are going to go to the URL 2168.122.135. We're going to hit enter, and now we can just focus on the browser. So here, of course, it will be admin, and the password that I chose, I'm going to log in. I'm going to say don't save, and here is the initial install of this. So one of the things we would have to do, of course, is we would have to create a pool of 4 data sets. So let's do that. Right, so you could just call this data set 1, or whatever. Let's say if you had multiple drives and you wanted to configure them differently, when a different set, you could do that. In this case, I'm going to say allow non-unique serial disks, and the reason let's pick that up is just because of how the virtual machine is handling the additional disk, which you can see here is a 200 gig drive. So I'm going to say next. Now, of course, these are the different layouts. If you're not too sure with how RAID works in its layouts, suggest just watching a quick video. But in our example here, I've only given it one disk, so I'm just going to say stripe. If we had 2 disks, we could do mirror, and of course, if we had multiple disks, we could start using RAID. So in this case, I'm just going to say stripe. And of course, stripe is discouraged because it can lead to data loss. So now I'm going to say save and go to review. Right, and basically I'm going to just say and create the pool. Now, what I'm planning to do myself is I have a little Internook device, and I plan to buy 2 external hard drives for it. Not the best to use external drives, really, I know, USB drives, but I plan to connect both USB drives in same amount of storage and just setting it up as a mirror. So if the one drive fails, it'll carry on running with the other. Okay, so we've now gone ahead and we've created the storage or the data set. So our main system is fine here, hardly using any memory, and here of course is our data set. Over here, our network info and CPU here. Right, so what could we do? Well, there's a few things we can do. We can go ahead and we can start creating networking shares. So let's say we need to do a mixed environment with Windows. We can add a share here, create a path, and just add the default shares to the system and click save. Right, pretty easy to work through that, and we can cover that in another video. We can even run virtualization, so we can run a virtual machine on here if we wanted to, or we could use apps. So if I was to go to discover apps here, so let me choose a application, so maybe something simple to use, like Homer, just a demo dashboard, click install, right, gives us the application name, its version, its network config, what port we would be able to access it on, what type of volume, where's it going to create it, does it need additional storage or anything along those lines, and how much memory. In this case, I'm just going to say install. Some of them, of course, will specifically ask you to reselect your data set. In this case, it doesn't ask us to, but it could ask us to do that. And over here, you can see it is currently busy deploying. Right. So we'll just wait for a couple of moments for it to deploy there. What it's basically doing is basically putting it down in the background. And of course, the web portal, we'll just click here, and you can see that it's taken us straight to the dashboard. Right, this of course is that dashboard. And of course, to configure it, we would obviously, in this case, go to the documentation, go to the website, and start editing it as it tells us to. But I mean, you can do this with different apps. So if you want something else as well, so I'll show you again. Back to apps, discover apps. So that's how we want MB. Just hit install. MB, that's fine. Host network. And I'm just going to say install. If we, of course, were using the other edition of TrueNAS, we would be installing some of the same software or similar software, but it would be using FreeBSD jails, where here, of course, we are using Docker or Kubernetes. So that's busy deploys. This has other features such as data protection, so you can, for example, force this system to make a copy of all of its data and push it to a cloud device as well, so you don't necessarily lose anything. Different types of reporting, in this case CPU usage, memory usage, system usage, you can just configure it all yourself. And it's amazing to think just this version itself is actually free. Really amazing. And great piece of software. Goes to show you the power and advantages of what open source can do for folks out of the box. Okay, here of course we now have MV, so you see if I change the name set of the different portals and different use ports come up. So maybe I'm just going to click web portal, and you'll see here we have MV. So folks, hope you liked this quick video on TrueNAS and how to get it up and running, this TrueNAS scale. If you have questions, leave them below. Comments, do you use this? Do you know someone else who does? Do you have other uses for it? Let us know. As always, thanks for watching and bye for now.